Welcome into this week's edition of Commodore Clash, where Jonah Barbin will be joined by Zach Phillip, a staff writer for the Vanderbilt Hustler, to discuss Vanderbilt's disappointing loss to Kentucky, preview their SEC bout with Missouri, and talk the biggest NFL storylines from Week 3, right now on Commodore Clash. Welcome back into Commodore Clash. I am Jonah Barbin, and today I am joined by the great Zach Phillip, a staff writer for the Vanderbilt Hustler. Zach, so thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We got a lot to break down. We're going to start with Vanderbilt's loss to Kentucky, one that started off really rough for the Commodores, going down 24-0. And there was a point, Zach, where it looked like they were coming back, but then things unraveled.
Yeah, it was a rough start. The turnovers certainly don't help, and couldn't get the ground game going. The Swan struggled in the pass game. The defense had a couple good stands, but eventually the Kentucky offense just overtook. Ray Davis had a big day, former Vanderbilt running back, now in Kentucky, had 2 touchdowns. Overall, just a tough performance and a really rough day for Vanderbilt football.
Yeah, so the moment I'm looking at it, it's 24-0 at this point. Did you go to the game?
I was there.
Oh, were you there the whole time?
I left mid-game.
You left. What was the score when you left?
24-0.
Okay, that's when I left too. My friends had come in from out of town. Everybody wanted to see the game. They were excited to see SEC football. I said, the way this team is trending right now, you might not see some SEC football, and that's exactly what happened. We left when it was 24-0 as well. And then they come out 24-13, and they're starting to drive down the field around the 50-yard line. You're thinking, okay, A.J. Swan looking a little bit better. Maybe something's getting going. Of course, the running game wasn't going, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's 24-13. Things look promising, and then Swan throws a pick, man. Well, I mean, how do you feel about A.J. Swan right now? Because you're a believer in him in general, right?
Yeah. I think right now he's the guy. I think the controversy is definitely starting to heat up. Clark Lee said this week that if Swan's not healthy, he's going to go with the healthy quarterback. And, I think Ken Seals has something to provide to this team. On limited snaps this year, he's thrown 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think in Lee saying that he wants the healthy quarterback, I think that might be an excuse for him to go ahead and give Seals the nod and put A.J. Swan on the sideline.
I think that's a very astute observation. I think when you talk about benching A.J. Swan, it's such a bad optic for Clark Lee right now. It's supposed to be year 3, supposed to be taking the next step, supposed to maybe be a bowl team, right? And then you're saying, our recruit, my first quarterback recruit, I'm going to go ahead and sit him down for a guy that was in here before me. Such a bad look. Now you have the excuse of an elbow injury, which might not be an excuse because I think A.J. Swan is a better player than what we've been seeing on the field. Now you sit him down, you put in Ken Seals, who's more disciplined. What this team needs is a positive turnover margin right now, and it's just they have the exact opposite. And it really was icing on the cake that Ray Davis ran all over this defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to the point about Swan, I think we know what we have in Seals. He played 2 years for this offense. He's a turnover machine. If Seals gets the nod and continues to play for this team, I think that's really a rough pill to swallow for A.J. Swan.
Yeah, and I don't think it would necessarily be long-term. There's some injury here, right? So if A.J. Swan can take a week off, get back to it, and sometimes it helps to have that perspective, especially he's a young guy, right? A.J. Swan, he's a sophomore. Sit down, recollect yourself, see a more experienced guy in there, and then get back in there in maybe a week because Missouri's going to be punishing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Zach, something I talk about every week on this show, right? I don't know if you've seen this before, but you've seen it now. The running game, man. The running game. There's no consistency in this running game. There's a three-headed monster, not really a monster right now. There's 3 running backs in the backfield, right? Gillespie, Patrick Smith, and Cedric Alexander. My favorite running back, the guy who I think has the most potential right now, is Cedric Alexander. But never a consistent amount of carries. That second game against Alabama A&M, I said, we're there. But we just have not seen the same consistency. 8 carries for him, 37 yards, not a bad. That's like 4.6 yards a carry. Patrick Smith, 12 for 36. He couldn't get anything going. Gillespie only got the ball once. What is going on in that backfield?
Jonah, I am right there with you. I think it's got to be Alexander or it's got to be Smith. And I'm leaning toward Alexander. He's the freshman. He's really agile. He's got a big frame. He can really move. He's really impressed me in his limited snaps. But I think Clark Lee's got to give him the nod, give him the football, and commit to the running game. And to that point, I think A.J. Swan's immobility is plaguing this team, and it has been for a while. I think Ken Seals, potentially a better athlete, can help jumpstart the offense. And I think that's what Mike Wright did later in the latter half of last season that really allowed the Vanderbilt offense to get going and have those 2 SEC upsets.
Yeah, I mean, the strength of this offense has to be their receivers. A really strong receiving core, even though not much was cooking. Gamarian Carter led the team with 2 catches for 48 yards, so he led the team. Just quickly before we move on, let's switch over to the defensive side of things. I actually thought the defense played a little bit better, considering, I mean, the offense was their greatest nemesis in that game.
I was gonna bring up that point. You know, I looked over the statistics from the defense. They look good on paper. The A.J. Swan gave up 14 points on 2 direct pick sixes through another interception and some more poor special teams play and just a terrible field position battle. It just plagued the defense, and I agree. I think you said it exactly right. The worst nemesis of the defense is the offense right now.
But I do not want to walk away from this game saying the defense looked really good. There were plenty of times where Ray Davis absolutely just gashed him. Devin Leary, there were times where even we talk about the defensive line, oh, it needs to get better. Darren Agu's back. Let's get it going. They were getting in the backfield, and he was going scrambling out for 50 yards. I mean, you can't have
No
that.
surprise Devin Leary had his longest rush as a Kentucky Wildcat against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, the secondary has still been a mess. Height got absolutely mossed at one point, and then they patted his helmet. And that was a rough ending there to watch. But they get a chance to bounce back. So they just had one game against an SEC team they beat last year, and now they will host Missouri this weekend, another SEC team they beat last year. But Zach, Missouri's off to a 4-0 start.
Missouri is off to a 4-0 start, but I'll tell you something. I think Vanderbilt is coming this week. If not a win, I think Vanderbilt covers the spread with ease. Missouri is overhyped right now. They're the 23rd ranked team in the country. They haven't played an SEC team. They're winning by an average of 4.6 points over their last 3 games. And truthfully, I think they're really overhyped. And when they go on the road for the first time this season, first away game after 4 home games, I think they're coming into a potential upset. Missouri, in their last 4 years, have won 3 away games, 3 in 4 years. Head coach Eli Drinkwitz has won 2 away games as a Missouri coach, and I think this is the week that Vanderbilt gets it done.
That's a fascinating little nugget right there. I think that is something to think about. The fact that, first of all, they haven't outscored their FBS opponents by that much. The games have been pretty close in the 3 FBS teams they played, right? I think they played 1 FCS team in this 4-game schedule. And that away, I mean, talk about home and away. It matters in the NFL, definitely matters in college. So we'll see what they can do there. Right now I have the line at 12. Is that where you had the line when you said Vanderbilt will cover? All right, well, I don't know. I think you might have just made DraftKings some money if people listen to you. I think Vanderbilt, I don't know if they're going to cover this right now.
Listen, we played them close last year. 14 unanswered in the second half. It was a last-second play away from a win, and it's the same quarterback who is much of the reason Missouri's getting hyped right now. But last year, we shut him down. He had a 25 quarterback rating against Vanderbilt. And look, if the defense can show a little bit of toughness at the beginning, I think Ken Seals, maybe A.J. Swan can get off to a hot start and bring Vanderbilt to its first SEC win.
Yeah, well, speaking of reasons why Missouri was hyped, I mean, one of the reasons right now is they take care of the football. They take care of the football almost better than anybody in college football right now. They have 2 turnovers in 4 games. Vanderbilt has 2 turnovers in 4 seconds, essentially. I don't think that's even hyperbole, maybe 10 seconds. So the way they take care of the football, if Vanderbilt is turning over the football, and this is obvious. This is the most obvious statement of all time, though. I mean, they're going to get killed in the turnover battle on Sunday, or Saturday, rather, because Missouri's not going to make those mistakes, right? So Vanderbilt is really going to be asked to make essentially mistake-free football, which they haven't been able to do. Again, I like the step I saw from the defense, but there's a lot, and they're going to get tested. Brady Cook, right? They might have shut him down last year, but I think the defense was in a slightly different place. He's off to a really good start. Cody Schrader leading the SEC in yards per carry. That's their running back. And man, Luther Burden is going to be a burden for this secondary. My bold take, 250 yards receiving for Luther Burden. That is my hot take.
That is a very bold take. Now, just to offer the flip side of the coin of your previous argument,
sure.
Missouri has only forced 3 turnovers this year. And if we know one thing, it's that Vanderbilt football is plagued by turnovers. Our offense turns the ball over almost every possession. But if Missouri doesn't turn us over, look for the offense to get rolling.
Well, the one thing I would retort there is their defense has been good, though, allowing 4.7 yards per play They've limited their opponents pretty well through the first 4 weeks. But again, Zach, we don't know if they played anybody real yet. We really don't. So that'll be a great game. Vanderbilt needs this one more than ever right now. Get the season back on track. Try to get back to 3-3. Missouri will try to get to 5-0, and we will keep our eyes on that Swan Seals situation. So something I want to talk to now quickly before we jump to the NFL. I want to stay on college just for 1 second. Colorado absolutely got dominated by Oregon on Saturday. Is the prime time God hype train over?
You know, I think it was a really bad look, and I think it was a rude awakening for Colorado, and I think that might be just what they needed to get back on track this week against USC. They're going against the reigning Heisman and Caleb Williams, the likely first overall pick in the NFL draft, the best quarterback in college football. And if Dion and Shedeur in Colorado are going to prove anything, it's got to be this week against USC.
Well, Zach, there's nothing like trying to get back on track against Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. That sounds like a great task there for Coach Prime. But hey, they love the challenge, so we'll see what they can do. Now let's talk NFL before we have to go. What were the biggest storylines of the weekend for you?
To me, I'm going to jump straight to the three huge upsets that I saw. I saw Dallas fall to Arizona. Absolute shocker for a team that was largely thought of to be a top 3 team in the NFL against one of the worst. And then I see the Ravens losing to Gardner Minshew and the Colts. Minshew Mania is always alive. And lastly, I see Jacksonville losing to Houston by 20 points in an absolute terrible performance. Trevor Lawrence in the offense just can't get started. And all those 3 upsets, each with huge point spreads, shocked me this week.
Well, let me ask you a question because I know you're very knowledgeable on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Would you buy low on Calvin Ridley right now in fantasy?
I'm actually going to say no. I would buy low right now on Christian Kirk.
I don't think you can. He's looking good, man.
Right, but I still think he's the one that's going to take the biggest step because from what I've heard from Jacksonville is they're going to try to find the offense they found last year and just make Ridley a part of that instead of reshaping the offense around Ridley. And yeah. I think that's where Christian Kirk finds his targets. And also keep an eye on Evan Ingram.
Keep an eye on Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. You heard it here first. One note on Arizona. I mean, credit to Joshua Dobbs. They've competed in all 3 games. They played the Commanders close. They played the Giants as close as possible. Miracle comeback. And then beat Dallas. So I don't know if that says more about Arizona or Dallas. Probably a little bit of both. And final thing I'll say is I always give a guy to pick up in fantasy. And I said Kyron Williams a couple weeks back. That's looked pretty good. This week, it's got to be my man Quentin Johnston, receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers. Mike Williams, unfortunately, tore his ACL. End of the season for him. They said they're going to work in Johnston more. Johnston, a rookie receiver, big physical rookie out of TCU who had such an amazing year last year. You got any pickups?
I would say I was going on the Chargers train as well. The Mike Williams injury. Keep an eye on Joshua Palmer, largely thought to be the second receiver there. I was surprised you said Quentin Johnston. I think he's more of the third receiver. So keep an eye on Joshua Palmer. I think he could pick up a lot of the slack that Mike Williams' absence is going to leave.
Yeah, certainly. Palmer getting about 80% of the snap share while Quentin Johnston getting about 23%. I just love the rookie guys and I love the upside. But you're right. If you have big benches, pick up both of them and see which one hits. This has been Commodore Clash. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, Zach, it was a pleasure. We hope we can have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. Vanderbilt and Missouri on Saturday. Make sure you tune into that. For Zach Phillip, I'm Jonah Barbin saying have a great night, folks.